Recording. Perfect. Yeah, so the idea is let's try and keep it as engaged as possible. If there's anything that comes up, feel free to put it in the chat. Will from Frontiers as well is there to support on any questions that you may have, or just to chime in as needed. Good to see you all. All right, so for today, just a little bit of an agenda. Given that there's not that many of us on the call, and again, I think there might be some of you who are dialing in who are not present in Singapore, might be good to just do a very quick round of introductions. There's a small template for that. We'll get into the what of impact measurement, then dive into the theme itself. I had sent across a survey to you all, which thankfully everybody filled, which was fantastic. So happy to share some of those findings, and then we'll really dive into the structure and what comes next. But before I do that, maybe Clemmy, at this stage, it would be good to just have you introduce yourself, and then we can dive into wider introductions.
Yeah, hi, thanks Anna. So I'm Clemmy Baker, I'm from the Arkina Foundation in New Zealand, and we support ventures to grow through incubators and other ways like coaching and investment and strategy design and impact management. So probably a lot of you will have been on the call for the session that we're running, so I won't repeat too much, and I'll talk later about the difference between this stream and the one that we're doing. But happy to be on the call with you all today and joining with Sana to deliver this.
Awesome, thank you so much, Clemmy. All right, so
Sana,
yes,
this is Nicola. I just wanted to also introduce myself. I did make it
awesome.
Home after my train. So just introducing myself to everyone as well. I'm Nicola from Arkina. And many of you would have met me on the call that Clemmy just mentioned on the Impact Ventures that we did a week or two ago. And I'll be supporting both Clemmy and Sana on the Impact Ventures and the Impact Accelerators. Thanks.
Awesome, glad you made it, Nicola. All right, so yeah, if we could maybe just do a quick round of introductions where, if possible, take yourself off mute and maybe have your video on for a second, just so that we can, it's actually a twofold purpose. We just kind of need to keep a track of everybody who's on the call, but then also I thought it would be helpful to introduce yourself by saying your name, your organization, and what is it about impact measurement that you think is important. Just a quick couple of words would be great. So whoever feels happy to jump in, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, I'm going to start picking on people.
Hello. Hi. This is Swati from One to Watch. I'm based in Kathmandu in Nepal. Our organization One to Watch, we're in Nepal and in Myanmar. Hello, everyone. Impact for us, it's twofold. I think primarily it's about learning from our own work. We run an accelerator program in both Nepal and Myanmar. My colleagues were there and in Singapore, although I wasn't personally there for the workshop. And the second purpose, I think, is to validate the work that we're doing, which our accelerator as well as our investments, they're based on impact. We want to create an impact. So it's primarily for us learning from our work and then also validating what we're doing.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Welcome.
Thanks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Klaus. I'm from Impact Hub Yangon. So we run programs primarily in Yangon and maybe in the future also in other parts of Myanmar. We run, a whole lot of different activities. So, workshops, gatherings, community activities, incubation programs. So for us to find kind of what is the impact of all of these different activities is something that is not easy to grasp and to analyze. and this is why I'm joining the program to explore how we might be able to do that.
Awesome. Welcome, Klaus. We'd like to take it.
Hi guys, I'm Moon from Social Innovation ID or CF. We're based in Jakarta. We basically run a different program, and one of them is the capacity building through workshops, and another one is an acceleration program. So why is impact? Because we want to measure how effective and how our impact to our in the accelerator program, and also we want to focusing in creating as much as positive impact to others as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sok Jing. I'm from Phnom Penh, and I'm currently working as a community manager and venture support manager at Impact Hub Phnom Penh. And what we're doing a lot of things to support startup. And one of the important things that we're doing is to provide incubator program and accelerator program. So why impact measurement? I think because it is one of the very important things for us to know. So that is why I'm here. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks so much for being there. And Sakchang, is Abby on the call as well?
Abby is on the call? No,
so she's joining the conference
in Thailand. Oh, so she is not, because she is now joining an social enterprise conference in Thailand.
All good. No, that's great.
But she's gonna watch a recorded one after that.
Yeah. No, all good.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi Sana, this is someone. Sorry, I guess you can't see me. So there might be some technical glitch, but it's great to see you after some time.
Yes.
So yeah, we are a business incubator based in Bangladesh. So we are part of BRAC. So we run an innovation challenge called Urban Innovation Challenge, through which we support young entrepreneurs through a kind of a 6-month-long incubation support. For us, impact measurement is very crucial because it not only, gives us overview of our programs, but also how our incubators are making impact. So if we can keep a track of that, so that is not only helping our incubators as well, but also internally we can learn a lot. So I think that's why we are very much keen to attend this workshop and learn a lot of insights.
Awesome. Good to see you again, or hear from you again.
Hi, I'm Hiền Từ from WISE Vietnam. We run accelerators supporting female-led startups. So like the why impact is pretty similar to other previous participants in the call. I think it's very important to know how well or not well we've done our program. And that's so that we can make necessary adjustments or tell the story to get new cohort into our programs.
Awesome. Good to see you again.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Mai from Kickstarter Food and Flower. Yeah, and about Food and Flower, we are focused on to help food startup to grow. And for us, because we are thinking, we have thought about impact, but we don't know how and where to start the impact measurement. And for us, we just think about what we are doing, how it will impact to the others. So this is the reason why we will join. Yeah.
Awesome. Nice to see you again.
Hi. Fa Mantra from Rise Impact. We're based in Bangkok. Good to see a couple of familiar faces here again. Actually, Rise Impact, we see ourselves as intermediary. So we do a lot of work with different stakeholders. We work to support like social entrepreneur. We work with policymakers. We work with an entrepreneur. I think we're in exploration stage. What will be like the base fit for us in the ecosystem? So for us, impact is one of the indicators that will guide us what would be our strategic steps or direction. So we're very early on that, and we expect to learn from all of you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Good to see you again.
Hi, this is Varda from the Social Innovation Lab. I was not able to attend the conference in Singapore, so I'm seeing you guys for the first time. My organization is Social Innovation Lab, and we enable change makers to build sustainable social entrepreneurs. We have 3 wings: consultancy, research, and incubation. So yeah, for us, this workshop and impact measurement is really important. So we need to measure the impact of our startups, of the people we do workshops with. So that's why we are here for the conference.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Varda. I think it was Zareen and Komal.
Yeah, Komal.
Yeah.
Komal, yeah.
Nice to meet you guys. Am I missing anyone?
Hi, I'm May from
Okay.
Rise Impact as well as FAR. And the same as what FAR has said, we think impact measurement is kind of indicator that help us guide what kind of organization and what will be our strategy for next year. That's the importance of it. And our organization, and we are Rise Impact team, so that's why impact is really important.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any other cohort orgs. Ian, did you want to hop in and just introduce yourself too?
Hello.
Hi,
this is
Ian.
Ian Fisk. I don't know if you want me to. I'm just observing.
All good. Just good to see you again.
Yeah. Sorry, it's a couple hours before where you are, so I'm gonna keep myself on camera for
okay.
Because I've got other folks here.
No worries. Okay, good to see you. All right. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers everybody on the call. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes to introduce yourself. It's nice to see some familiar names and faces, and also to see some new ones. And I'm just going to dive right into the core of the session. So, asking that sort of big question on why impact measurement, it definitely came out from each of your responses. And, what I want to highlight is that impact measurement, and more importantly, impact management, it is a complex area for all organizations, because there's different levels, there's different ways to do things, but ultimately it is very important. It's what helps to kind of weave together the underlying story about what's going on with the change that you're trying to create. Not only can it be a story that helps you attract more customers, let's say, whether it's entrepreneurs, whether it's the funders, etc., but also is the story of how you're making the world a better place, right? And so if we zone in on all of us as intermediaries or organizations that support entrepreneurs, whether social entrepreneurs, whether directly or indirectly, there's definitely multiple dimensions. And I think some of you brought that out very explicitly, where you're trying to understand the impact that you're having at a programmatic level. So after you've run a program, what tends to be the impact or the outcomes that have come about from that? And then how do you combine that at an organizational level? And so just on the slide put down, like, you know, when we work with entrepreneurs, we obviously are trying to understand, well, what impact has going through this program had for people in terms of their overall entrepreneurial mindset. And in a slide at the bottom where I'll share the survey responses, having asked people to show how they're looking at impact, that was one of the indicators that one of the organizations shared. If we're looking more at a program level, we tend to think of, well, the number of entrepreneurs that we reached, or the geographic scope of that, the level of revenue or funding created. And then if we go up and zoom up at the organizational level, it's not only the financial and the operational, but also the wider network impact that we're having. So this is truly very multifaceted. I took this graphic from the Impact Management Project, and actually they're going to be one of our guest speakers on a future webinar, because they've done some incredible work in trying to standardize, to an extent, the way that impact can be measured across various types of social impact organizations. But just so we all feel comfortable, and also, you know, I think it's important to name this, that it is a complex area. It is something that requires looking at all different stakeholders. And then the other element is, of course, this whole notion of contribution versus attribution. So what I mean by that is, if we think about, you know, taking a tangible example of, for Spring's case, for instance, we run incubation, acceleration, investment readiness programs, as well as do broader advisory work and capacity building work, trying to really delineate ex-entrepreneur who went through an investment readiness program. We can see some tangible measures in terms of the funding that that founder was able to raise, but then being able to track 1, 2, 3 years down the road what impact that funding then had on them being able to double or triple their revenue, etc., and saying that this was directly attributed to having gone through that program is definitely a much harder and more complex exercise. And so one of the messages, and Clemmy, if you feel like jumping in at any point, feel free as well. I just want to, you know, kick off the session with what we are heading into is a subject that, especially for intermediaries, can be a little bit more challenging, because we're starting to see some cohesion around impact measurement and management approaches that are on the entrepreneur side, on the investor side. For us as intermediaries, there's definitely frameworks, and we will be going through those, but it is a challenging area. So don't feel like you are alone in experiencing some of that tension with, you know, where to start or how hard this is. And our goal as program partners leading this session is to provide you with a toolkit for what that might look like for each of your unique organizations, and also just, you know, a foundation upon which to build and move forward. So any questions, or can I dive right into the overview of the theme? And if you don't feel comfortable saying it out loud, you can also put it in the chat. Okay, if no questions, then we can just move to the next next part of it. It's more logistical as well. So, you know, we had this amazing experience in Singapore with all of you and the program partners diving into lots of, you know, really nuts and bolts of topics and sessions that each of us deal with, whether it was on financial sustainability, on mentoring, impact, etc. And I'm sure all of you have now kicked off your more one-on-one advisory mentorship sessions with program partners, and then of course these theme ones that have come about. And just as context, the theme ones are of course more webinar and remote styles such as this, intended for us to be able to reach a wider pool of you who expressed an interest in wanting to unlock this for your organization. But one thing I think is important for us to bear in mind is that, yes, of course, there's this theme stuff that's happening, but let's try and figure out ways to integrate it with the other stuff that you're learning, with your bespoke support that you're getting from each of the program partners. So the idea is that there's going to be various information coming from you from all the different, whether it's more one-on-one support or theme support. And so yeah, our goal is to help you navigate your way through that as well. So why the impact theme? Just going back to one of the earlier slides that I had. So when we think about impact measurement, it's starting to be a little bit more clearer and easier to focus on when you're looking at more of a social entrepreneur or venture level, also at an investor level. But what happens for us as incubators and accelerators ourselves is that, of course, a big part of what we're trying to do as impact organizations is to be able to bake in that understanding of what it takes to create an impact venture right from the onset. But then us ourselves as organizations who are providing the training and supporting entrepreneurs, we ourselves are impact organizations. And how do we understand the impact that we ourselves are creating? And when Akina was fleshing out the theme around impact measurement, that became clear that there was this distinction, so to speak. And so, and Clemmy and Nicola and the Akina team, I'm sure, have gone through this in a little bit more detail, and I'm going to pass it over to her in a second to talk about the distinctions between the impact theme that's for ventures versus this one. But for the accelerator theme that we're going to be diving into in the next 6 months is, first of all, it's a little bit of level setting. We're really trying to understand what are some of your key challenges, and then be able to zone in on how we can support those. We're going to be going through varied impact management frameworks, tools, approaches, and this will be done through a series of webinars with other guest speakers. So as I mentioned, we have someone coming in from Gali, from Impact Management, from B Lab, from SDGs. And so trying to weave in some of these guest speakers to come and share perspectives and tools for how you can incorporate those types of approaches into your overall impact management framework. And the setup, and I'll show that in a second, is it goes from being able to do a delivery of some of that content, and then having a seminar to be an opportunity for us to chat through some of the key learnings, the questions. And in between webinars and seminars, we've set up what we call sort of work time, which will be an occasion for you and your teams who are focused on the impact side of things to test out and try out what you're learning, and seeing how it might be applicable for your unique situations. And that process runs from now until the end of August, with September being kind of our last session. To just gonna open the chat box. Oh, okay, that's just full. The goal is that you should, towards the end of this program, feel a lot more confident with the different tools that are out there. You would have had a chance to tweak and try out some that might be relevant for your organizations, and be in a place where you are able to really either have already started to create or be on the path to creating an impact management framework for your organization that makes sense. And of course, all of this is building on what Akina is doing as well. So I'm just going to reopen the chat from Will, and his comment is that if anyone is not yet in the Impact Accelerator Slack channel or in here at all, please just let Will know, or of course let myself know, and I can let them at the FI team know, and we can add you. So for instance, if there's someone on your team who wasn't able to join, just feel free to keep us posted. So Clemmy, at this stage, it would be great if you can hop on and just chat through Akina's venture impact theme, and yeah, just kind of mapping out the ways that the programs are different, but also complementary. And I'm happy to support on that too, but it would be great.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so as Sana was saying, the focus of this session is to help you to measure your impact. The session the theme that we're working on is how you can help ventures to measure their impact. It seems like a subtle difference, but I think that's the simplest way of explaining it. So the work that we're doing in the Akina theme is working with organizations like yourselves, many of you are on it, to teach you how you can facilitate sessions and coach social enterprises to measure their own impact. And we, unlike this theme, we focus mostly on one methodology, the theory of change approach, and we go quite step by step and simply through that process, so that you've been taken through the steps to be able to measure, to facilitate a workshop to capture the theory of change, to then identify measures or indicators to measure whether the change is happening, and how you can teach social enterprises to do their own theories of change. Obviously, it's linked to this one because it's helpful for you to understand your own impact if you know the impact that the social enterprises themselves are having. So it sort of rolls up. It's like, if all of the social enterprises are having impact in a particular area and you know that and you've got some data on that, then it's easier for you to look at an aggregated view of that and tell your impact story more clearly. But for a lot of you, the impact areas that the social enterprises you work with will be so varied that you can't get that aggregated view as easily. So we decided to separate out the themes so that we focus on the different challenges in those two different propositions separately. Sana, does that explain it clearly enough? Perhaps one more thing before I hand over to you again. Obviously, there are other points where it kind of intersects the two different themes. So one of those is where we talk about tools for measurement. So if we think about incubators or accelerators or intermediaries measuring their own impact, they'll probably use technology platforms or tools to gather data and capture data and store data and analyze it. Those may or may not be the same tools that a social enterprise would use to capture, store, record, measure, analyze their data as well. So that's a point where there's a bit of a crossover between the two. We may also touch on some of the same methodologies that you could use, whether you're an accelerator, an incubator, an intermediary, or if you're a social enterprise as well. But as I said, over on the Akina theme, we're focusing just on one of them primarily and going more in detail with a step-by-step guide of how you can teach that methodology.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful, Clemmy. And I was just wondering, in terms of the dates of sessions, because this could be an interesting way to line things up, right? Because one of the things that we're going to be doing as part of this theme is after we kind of level set with everybody in terms of where they're at and kind of see what data you're already capturing, one of the steps is going to be to also, you know, after our first call, which is with Gali and Clemmy, talking about their theory of change and some of the tools that Gali has built, the ask of everyone is going to be to map out their own theory of change as an organization. If you haven't done one already, do a little bit of a refresh. And so maybe one thing that we can do offline is just like sync up on the timing and kind of see how that plays in. But regardless if it doesn't fully sync up, I think that the message here is that both these themes are very, very complementary in that if you are able to really get a deep and better sense of how you're going to be walking ventures through understanding their own impact, with the theory of change as a fundamental tool to do that, those learnings will be super valuable for understanding your own impact as an organization. And so yeah, just think of them as working very nicely together, and potentially, as Clem said, we might try and combine some of the learnings on the technology tool side of things. So you'll see that in a second. Did you also want to talk about the learning objectives briefly, Clem?
Yeah, so sorry, I didn't actually step through what the modules were, but on the previous slide, the first module is just why measure impact, and that's again with the lens of why should a social enterprise measure their impact rather than why should you as an accelerator, incubator, intermediary measure your impact. The next session is the theory of change and what it is, and the kind of some of the complicated parts of it, but also the tips on how to do it in a not overcomplicated way. In the third session, we talk about how you take the learnings from those first two sessions and apply them to teach a social enterprise how to do it, how you facilitate a session with them, how you support them to build their own theory of change, and how you help them write it up and adjust it as it's an iterative process. We then move on to talking about gathering data, how you can use the theory of change as the base that you then come up with measures for, and how you decide what good measures are, how you capture data, how you kind of interview stakeholders and gather that data. And finally, we importantly talk about how you use the data. So how you can report on it to engage stakeholders, how you can use it as, or how social enterprises can use it as a strategy tool to manage themselves better, so that the decisions they're making are based on the data they gather and the clarity that they have from having their theory of change. So that's a bit of a summary of the learning objectives from the next slide, but we'll cross over to that slide anyway. It's sort of easier to talk you through it with those high level theme modules. But you'll see there under the second point, understand what the theory of change is and the different elements that comprise one. The learning objectives under that one is to be able to articulate what a theory of change is, how to deliver a workshop on designing a theory of change, how to coach a venture on designing a theory of change, and being able to develop and improve theories of change for ventures. So that's kind of the crux of it. And then there's the other bits that wrap around it of how to teach it and how to measure and how to use it.
Awesome. Does anybody...
questions, let me know.
Yeah, any questions? I was just going to say, does anybody have any questions on both the themes or just some of the crossover or any initial thoughts? All right. Take your time to absorb, of course, and reach out with any questions that come to mind. So I'm going to dive into just providing a snapshot then of the question, the responses, sorry, that we asked of you, with just trying to understand where people were at. And so 9 out of 10 of the orgs who responded, and I believe that's pretty much everybody, because we have people who are multiple people from one org. So thank you, first of all, for taking the time to send over those responses. And the first question of whether or not organizational impact is defined and tracked, and 5 out of the 9 who responded are doing that. And so for the 4 orgs who are not able to, not a problem at all. I think that, we've acknowledged right from the onset that this is a complex process and exercise, and trying to wrap your head around it. So hopefully with the 4 that aren't, if we're able to get you to that point where you are well on your way of being able to do that towards the end of this, then that will be amazing. And for the ones who have, happy to continue helping you shape that a little bit more. So definitely a good starting point. The other question that we had asked is what your sort of funding model and how you're currently set up. And yeah, an overwhelming number of you are set up as a for-profit. The reason I think that question to an extent was important for us to gather some intel on is, there's thinking about the story that you're trying to communicate as an organization, and thinking about the stakeholders that you report to as well. As nonprofits solely, there's definitely going to be a different approach when it comes to reporting different stakeholders than it would be for a for-profit. I think that even as a for-profit, there might be, for instance, in Spring's case, we are a for-profit corporate entity, and with the B Lab and the fact that we're a certified B Corp, that was an approach that we were able to go for based on having that corporate structure set up. And so just helpful to kind of know where everyone is at. But then the other sort of element that I think is important is that from an organizational perspective, when you're thinking about the impact that you create, being able to have a high level understanding of financial indicators and operational indicators as well is one way and one lens of looking at your impact. So what I mean by that is, like your sources of revenue, how they've grown, profitability, etc. Those may not necessarily be external facing impact that you share, but it kind of gives you a lens into how your organization is growing. So this will likely be a data point that we will try to dig in a little bit deeper on from folks, just to start to get you thinking about that a little bit more. For the next question, so obviously everyone responded individually. I've just blinded those responses and put them all together. But currently for the organizations who define and articulate their impact, these are some of the ways that you do that. Lives improved, jobs created, a number of people served, entrepreneurs served, participants who complete programs, positive testimonials. I did notice that in a lot of cases it was also gender segregated, and so number of men versus women versus diverse entrepreneur groups. And so these are, I think, in terms of how our sector operates, these are kind of commonly recognized ways of showing the impact that's being created. In the next session, we're going to be talking a little bit more about Spring's own journey in doing this, and about how some of these are a little bit more at the breadth of impact. And our goal is to not only be able to talk about breadth, but also depth. But again, good to see a mix of what people are doing. And, I was trying to keep track of some of the questions and objectives that you brought up right at the beginning. And people are definitely trying to figure out, okay, well, what's happening to folks who go through our programs, and what would have happened if they hadn't done that, and hadn't been part of our organization. And so the other message that I think is important is we're going to be, as part of this process, looking at impact from both a quantitative but also a qualitative side, because there's it is multifaceted. So yeah, just good to see the range that people are working with. And then the challenges, and a lot of you did mention this right at the beginning, like the data side of things, and that is truly challenging. It's not only getting the data, but managing it, deciphering, and all of that whole element on data. And here's, to Clemmy's point, where their focus on theory of change and indicators, etc., which will dive into some of that collecting of data side of things, while it's more specific to ventures themselves, will also be helpful as part of your own process. And then not a clear enough focus, no fixed templates, outcome tracking after a program. So this is, again, like, how do you get consistent information from people after they've left a program, and just the overall data management. I just want to again impress that all these challenges that you bring up and raised in the survey responses, we all experience that again. It's a challenging but also an iterative process, and so don't let that phase you in terms of trying to come up with the foundation upon which you're going to start to do this in a more data-driven way. And again, hopefully you feel a lot more empowered with the different approaches by the end of the session. And so our goal is to help you deal with some of these challenges. And I don't want to I think it would be actually helpful if something else has come up in your mind right now, like that's really something that you're grappling with, that we can, add to the things that we can start to dive into in some of our seminar calls a bit more. So does anyone have anything else that they'd like to share on this regard with respect to what's keeping them up at night when it comes to impact management? Hopefully no one's feeling too overwhelmed. I think, we just have a couple of slides left on the actual logistics, etc., of everything, of how the program works. But I just want to re-emphasize that this is a very safe space. Like, all of us are amazing organizations and leaders trying to make a real difference in terms of how business is done, in terms of how innovation happens and investment, etc. So you are amongst a group of fantastic peers, and we're all here to learn from each other. So please feel free and comfortable to chime in wherever. But if not, then I will just talk a little bit about the structure of what we have developed for this program and for the theme over the next 6 months. And so today's call was really just about getting to know each of you, see who on the team is going to be focusing on this theme over the next 6 months, just set up the right expectations. We're going to have our next session or seminar on the 1st of April. I do believe that by then we would have had a couple of time changes, and so the just daylight savings, and this has been a fascinating experience for me, understanding daylight savings across multiple time zones, but it does shift. So hopefully it's still at a reasonable time for everybody. But we, in that next session, are going to be doing a little bit more of, I think, vulnerable sharing, because that's the other thing that I want to do here is, like I said, to create that safe space. So I'll be walking you through Spring's own journey of impact measurement, sharing our impact report that I produced last year. We can do a walkthrough of that. And also just getting people to start to think about what they're currently doing and to share more of the data so that we can all kind of be on the same page. Our first official webinar is with Gali and with Clemi of Akina on theory of change on the one side, but then Gali will also be doing a bit of a deep dive on their value for money tool of a program, of an accelerator program. Speaking of time zone and just challenges, given that Gali is based on the East Coast, we will be doing a little bit of a hybrid webinar where we have, we'll show you a pre-recorded session with them, and then we'll have Clemi jump in and do her piece more live, and then we'll bring it together. So bear with us, as this will be the first time that I'm doing a hybrid such webinar, but just trying to be respectful of all the different time zones that people are at. But that's going to be a great first webinar and session to really zoom in on what are, first of all, what's an established way of thinking about organizational change using a theory of change tool. And Gali's report on when they talked about their value for money tool not only dives into the tool and the toolkit, but also there's a great description and deep dive that they go into on an accelerator's theory of change, because that's going to be a valuable piece of this conversation. That's on April 25th. The next seminar will be on the 23rd of May. So as I mentioned at the front end, we'll have a webinar, we'll have a seminar a month later, and that's purposeful in that between the webinar and the seminar, it's time to have you focus on applying what you're learning or hearing from the guest speaker and from ourselves, and then in the seminar have an occasion for us to do some sharing, to learn from each other, to have a space to get some feedback, etc., and have a good sort of back and forth between the cohort. The second webinar that we have already locked down is on the 27th of June. And that is looking at some more sort of bigger global frameworks. We have someone coming in from the impact management project, as well as B-Lab, which is even more relevant today, given that they're working on a framework that ties in with the SDGs. So that one is on the 27th of June. And then similarly, the next seminar is a month later. So the time that we have in between will allow each of you to kind of see how you can apply the approaches. And then we'll have a chance to talk through that in the seminar. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a webinar in August on tech platforms, tools, and really more on the operational and the tactical side of things of how you're going to be able to do this. That could be a session that Akina and us deliver together, still to be determined, but there could definitely be value in combining some of those technology tools. And then, of course, just a synthesis and wrap up in September, on the September 12th. Those were the key dates. And yeah, so as I mentioned, monthly webinar, monthly seminar, work time in between. The tools that we'll be using, so definitely use Slack to poke us for things that are top of mind. Email is of course available, but Slack tends to be easier. I know that some of you who are on the call are also doing some one-on-one support with Spring, and so what I'm about to share, which is in the slide deck, is a project plan. It will be familiar because it's what I developed for all our other programs as well, and so I'm just going to do a walkthrough for everybody. And it is, Will, this might be a question for you, but if not, so it is in the shared folder, and I'm not sure if all the cohort organizations have access to it yet. If not, I can just share it.
I'm not sure if they have access now, but we can make sure that they do.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I also don't have access.
You don't? Okay, great. So what we'll do is there's a shared folder at the back end that program partners are just putting in content into for the thematic proposals. So we'll just make sure that everybody has access to that. But it's basically just one shared Google Doc for us to keep track of what's going on, to share resources, to put up questions, etc. So you'll see that the first tab is just a description of what's on each. This is everyone who's signed up for the sessions. This is the schedule that I just walked through in terms of the dates and the key speakers who will be there as well. You'll see the dive-in time in between each of the webinars and seminars. This is a space just to put some questions. If you are more a spreadsheet rather than Slack person, feel free to put them in here. We'll try and track both at the same time. Ideally, this is where we track notes, but I realize, Will, that when you're actually leading a webinar, trying to keep track of notes at the same time is a little bit challenging. So we might have to resort to the text recording, and yeah, just to keep them in there, because one of the things with questions and notes is that it also helps us recognize patterns, because people are for sure thinking, the same thing. So yeah, feel free to put things down here. And then I started to put together a resource tab as well, and this could be a great place for people to start, where I've put down some reports, like impact reports from program partners, other reports that are out there for Accelerator impact measurement, other frameworks. So this could be just useful. And if you guys have anything to add, and we'll just mention that he will share this document in Slack with everybody, so you should have access to it. Mel, I think you're on the call with your other colleague from Impact Hub in Phnom Penh. I was wondering, would you like to also include your impact report that you guys have just released? Just send us a link, and we can put it in there as well. Just moving back to the deck. So yeah, the goal is that the overall idea here is this is all obviously remote support, and so having this cadence of having a webinar, having some time in between, and then having a seminar to allow us to have a space where we can talk and share, etc. I'm hoping is a good way to allow us to really help you be able to voice some of the key challenges you're having, but then also have a space to have feedback from ourselves as program partners, but also from each other. Just know again that you are not alone or in being challenged by this whole process. It is got lots of different nuances, and hopefully the way that we've set things up allows you to dive into some of your key goals. I see another question. Just thank yous, and then here we go. Questions. Any big thoughts, comments, etc.? As promised, we're not at 90 minutes, but closer to 60. So all good. How's everyone feeling?
A big thank you, Sana and Clemmy, for this. In lieu of questions, I just wanted to say thanks. And I think questions, comments, and challenges, and this is the kind of stuff that will bubble up as we go through it. But an encouragement if things are coming to mind to use the Slack channel offline between calls to share anything that comes up for you.
Yeah, and maybe, Will, what I might do is I'll also just pin this project plan doc to the Slack channel so that people can just have easy access to it. And, we'll always, wherever possible, we'll share the deck in advance. It may not sometimes be possible if we have guest speakers, but wherever possible, we will, so that you can have access before hopping onto a session. And yeah, as Will said, please feel free to send over any questions as they come, or challenges. Talk to each other in between the sessions too. Yeah, perfect. So yeah, I just want to highlight that one of the organizations who's on the call, Impact Hub Phnom Penh, they just released their own impact report, which they've been working super hard on for the last little while. Their impact and program manager who released the report is currently not on the call, but maybe what I might ask Abby to do when we do our next seminar is to share their experience as well on what that was like, in addition to Spring sharing, and you get more perspectives on the how and the what and everything that this entails. So thank you so much, Sok-Ching, for sending that over as well, and I can add it to the list of our resources. So
can I have that report?
Absolutely. I'm just going to add it to the list of resources.
Great.
All right. So Clemmy, thank you for being on the call as well and sharing, and Nicola too. I know that the train was not allowing you to be with us, but glad you could make it. A big thank you to each of you for being here today. As Will said, stew and chew over things and send over thoughts as they become a bit more live. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you in about a month. But yeah, just expect communication over email or Slack as things come about. So enjoy the rest of your... I'm not even going to attempt to try and figure out where it's day and where it's night. So thank you, everybody. And Will, I believe the recording will be available for the cohort as well in the next couple of days. So just know that will be, we'll share that with you once it's ready.
Exactly. We'll clean it up and share it with everyone when it's ready.
Awesome. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your day and talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Son.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.